check in because I know some of y'all might have partied too hard last night. I had to call it early. 11:30, didn't go to sleep till about 1, so it is what it is. But hey, day 2, let's make it through and we'll be done. We'll be, over with and I can kind of finally sleep and maybe play some games later on. All right, so we've got a couple of things going on today. We have keynotes. We'll start with Kunal. We'll have Archie come up as well. But before that, I just want to, again, thank you all for coming out again. I know it's coming out to Toronto, especially if you're not local, or sorry, if you are local, it's a challenge because, hopping on the train or hopping in your car driving downtown is tough. So thank you again. So we have some keynotes, we have a bunch of sessions. There was one session that happened yesterday, that was supposed to happen yesterday, and we actually had to move it to today because of, emergencies. That's okay, right? The thing I always make sure of is that family first. If something's going wrong, take care of that. We can always figure things out later on. Having said that, my wife and my kid are coming, so they're going to be stopping by. So if you see them around, I'd like you to thank my wife because, and her name is Anu. She actually put in a lot of work, off to the side, behind the scenes. I didn't really talk much about it because she doesn't like to be, public about that stuff. But she really helped me with a lot of stuff on the administrative, financial, whatever, for Kubehuddle. So if you see her, say hello. Also, remember, we have a code of conduct, so I'd like you all to make sure you maintain that throughout the rest of the day, and even after the event as well. If you are live tweeting, or if you're using LinkedIn, please tag hashtag Kubehuddle with any kind of post, pictures, videos. We love it because guess what? We're going to go and handpick some really good posts. One of our books that I picked up for prizes. So
and she's going to sign them.
And she's going to sign them, exactly. So I will hand those out probably, I don't know, maybe at the end of the day. But I'll get them signed beforehand, or actually maybe you should get them personally signed by Aurelie and we should be good to go. Just a reminder, washrooms are just outside of this room to the right. There are accessible washrooms as well. There's a water fountain there. There are water coolers in every single room. Lunch will be served just before 1 p.m. Breakfast is good until about, I think, 11. So, feel free to load up if you want. Also, we have, again, we're starting a little bit later, so we have a fewer set of sessions today. We have some intro sessions here. We have advanced sessions over there. We also have some workshops going on delivered by our speakers. So we have some good workshops. Peter and Dewan are delivering a workshop as well. I know that Orko, wherever Orko is delivering a workshop on ambient mesh. And then there are a couple of other workshops. Rob Salmon's delivering a workshop on debugging Istio, which is pretty advanced. And I would recommend anyone that messes around with APIs, Envoy, using Istio to just go sit down and have problems. I would, but I'm running around. And there's one more by Rogs on I can't remember deploying your apps to a Kubernetes infrastructure. So go check that out as well. And I will say that there is one more thing going on at 11 a.m. That is Women in Cloud Native panel happening in Kassan workshop room in 717B. So please check that out. We have some great panelists on there. Some of them are in this room. I highly recommend you check that session out. Finally, again, thank you all for coming. I really do appreciate it. I hope I'm not missing anything. I am not using slides because I want Kunal to be able to present and not mess up laptop situations because we had enough baby issues yesterday. And I was, we worked around them and everything should be good, but I'm just saying, thank you. So let's get going. All right, let's welcome Kunal. He's going to give a keynote on, I don't know what it is, so he's going to surprise you. But, Kunal has been a very huge pillar in our Cloud Native community. But he's a global pillar, right? He does a lot to enable the community in so many different ways, and he spends time with folks that are really trying to get into Cloud Native. So please give it up for Kunal Kushwaha.
Thank you. Of course. All right, thank you, Marino, for the introduction. Hi everyone, my name is Kunal Kushwaha. I'm going to be talking about scaling cloud native communities, crossing the chasm and lessons learned. It's a really practical talk in terms of like action items that you can follow up on, and you can see me running around with my camera at Kubehuddle. It has been great. By the way, I did a day one wrap-up video. If you want to see that, Kubehuddle day one wrap-up on my Twitter, I posted it. But I'll do a bunch more stuff today, but I'm really excited. Yeah. I'm Kunal. I'm a CNCF ambassador. I'm a development manager at Civo, and I'm the founder of We Make Devs. Like Marino mentioned, I run a community, and I've been involved in communities since my freshman year. I love scaling communities. I love teaching. I love collaborating with amazing people. Bless you. And let me start with this little story. So I was working as an intern at a company, and there was a designer, and they made like a design for the website, and I knew that it was not good. Like it's not going to work. So I told them like, okay, this is not going to work. Maybe we can do this or that. It's hard to use. And then they were like, oh, you're an intern. Who cares? So I was like, okay, do it your way, whatever floats your boat. So after that, the project went on. And when they tested the website with users, it turned out that people, obviously they were having a hard time using it, and this caused fewer people to use the website, and they didn't think about what the users wanted, and this caused a little bit of a problem. So to fix these problems, they had to spend more time and resources and money. So we'll use that analogy. I'll explain in the later of the talk, like how do you start your own community. And from this example, like working with teammates, the role of empathy, and how do you scale communities. And we'll also take some examples of some of the nice communities in Cloud Native that have done this really well. But let's start with what defines a community. In the context of this talk, a community can be defined as a group of individuals who come together based on shared interests, goals, or characteristics. For example, Kubehuddle community, we're all passionate about tech, cloud native, or all sorts of things. We want to meet people, have fun. And it's all a sense of belonging and connection that the members experience, and it's a space where people can interact and collaborate and support one another, and exchange knowledge, do all sorts of things. Let's talk a little bit about what are some of the challenges that people face. If we talk about cloud native communities, face common challenges. I think I'll list 10 of those, including the need of for adoption, education, because it's complex. So navigating the complexity. You may have seen the CNCF landscape and the learning curve that is involved. I go to all these events and like, okay, Kubernetes, everyone's talking about Kubernetes. I talk to some companies, like small companies or whatever, and I'm asked them, do you use Kubernetes? And I know it's very complex. So the learning curve that is involved there, the keeping up pace with technological advancements. I get this question a lot. How do you keep up with all of the things that keep coming out? And I think if you're in tech, you never stop learning. I think Julia mentioned in the keynote as well. If you want to get into Kubernetes, you will keep on learning new things because new versions keep coming out. Other than that, challenges include ensuring scalability and performance, addressing security and compliance concerns, promoting community engagement and participation, managing compatibility, and establishing effective governance, decision-making process, balancing innovation with stability, and sustaining the community leadership as well. We'll talk about how to overcome these challenges. Basically requires raising awareness, providing training, fostering collaboration, resource utilization, so on and so forth. So how do you start? There's a really nice TED talk that I like. It's called Start With Why. So I get this question quite a lot. How do I start my own community? And because that's what we have to talk about before we talk about scaling your community. So there are a few questions you need to ask yourself. Like, first one is, what is your mission? Why do you want to start your own community? Anyone in this room who wants to start their own community, after this talk, write down on a piece of pen and paper these 4 questions answers. So what are your community's shared struggles? That's one. Like, what sort of people are who are going to join your community? What does your mission look like? What is your mission? What do members look to get out of your community? That's third one. And the fourth one is, what does your community look like once its shared struggles are solved? So that you have a big picture and you can work towards that. So anyone who has a question around how do I start my own community, answer these 4 questions. Right. We talk about scaling communities. So there are a few strategies. The number one is build a solid foundation, just bringing me back to the previous point. What is your mission? So, establishing the community values and principles, building a strong foundation for the community. Scaling involves like clearly defining and communicating the community's values, principles, and shared goals, because this creates a common understanding and guides decision making, ensuring a cohesive and purpose-driven community. Goals can change over time, but I think it should be very well communicated. Next one is creating an effective. That's by the way, that's me when I was 18. All right, creating effective communication channels and platforms, because communication is very important. You get into a community, you're like, how do I get in touch with the organizers or the members or whatever? I get some other questions like, I have a community but it's not active. So it's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. If you want to keep the community active, you have to get the members involved. You can do that in multiple ways, as we'll see later. But yeah, the second step is effective communication. So you can include forums, mailing lists, chat platforms, social media groups, or community websites. All right, inclusion is another one, which is also very important. So if you want to scale your community, it requires active participation and contributions from its members. I like to say that if you want to scale your community, you have to give up control. You can't do everything, if you wanted to. I mean, I can't, and that's what I've seen. So there would be a time where you would hit your, like the glass would be full and you're like, no, I need help. So if you want to scale, you have to give up control. And by encouraging and recognizing contributors, providing them opportunities for involvement, and fostering an inclusivity and respect, community scaling can be achieved very well. Automation, I use this. So automation and tooling can play a vital role in supporting your community's growth. You can use tools for administrative tasks and set up collaboration platforms, utilizing tools for knowledge sharing and your social media or whatever, resource management. It can be streamlined a bit. Right. Let's move on to some of the real world examples. Like J. Cole said, I studied the greats, I'm the greatest right now. So let's look at some nice, great, good communities who are doing this really well. So the Kubehuddle community, it's very nice. They have experienced remarkable community scaling by adopting an open and inclusive approach. It has grown to include thousands of contributors from various organizations from around the world. So the key factors contributing to the success include clear governance structures, transparent decision-making process, and fostering a culture of collaboration and empathy. So some of the lessons learned include the importance of active community management, effective documentation. The case logs are really good. And they also have established many mentorship programs to support newcomers. So the Kids community is, pretty good. People often ask me, can you suggest me some beginner-friendly open source organizations to contribute to our projects? I think such big projects can also be beginner-friendly because they have beginner-friendly issues and they're very inclusive. Apart from, there's another one, React is also, centered around the popular JavaScript, library or whatever you want to call it. It has seen significant growth and scaling. So that's another example. Right, so what are the lessons that we have learned from these two communities? Inclusion, it's key. So successful community scaling relies on creating an inclusive environment where diverse voices are welcomed. So encourage open communication, active listening, respect for diverse perspectives, emphasize empathy in all community interactions. Next one is transparent governance and decision making. So because clear governance structures and decision making processes are essential for the community scaling part, and because these enable the community members to contribute meaningfully and feel a sense of ownership over the community's decision. So you can define roles, responsibilities, and decision-making processes within the community and ensure the transparency in decision making. The third one is documentation. So I was also interning at this company, and this is like new employees ask, what's the documentation? Team lead is saying, I'm the documentation. So don't do that. Having clear documentation is very important. I have faced this a lot, and if you are a beginner, if you want to attract some newcomers to your project and you don't have good documentation, that's going to be an easy task. So, and if you are part of a project that does not have good documentation and you're looking to contribute, then you can maybe write good documentations. Being a beginner is one of the best skills that you can have because you bring a new fresh perspective. So yeah, good documentation, that's all I can say. Pretty self-explanatory. Collaboration and cross-project engagement, so between different projects within the community, can lead to shared learnings and accelerated growth. So yeah, establishing platforms for cross-project communication and collaboration, you can help promote innovation and resource sharing. Right, last one is mentoring and support. So yeah, for newcomers, you can support them via mentorship programs, help them navigate the community, learn the best practices, and they can receive guidance. And it's also nice to provide support and recognition for community members for their contributions. It also helps you find your natural advocates. Which brings me acknowledging and appreciating the efforts of community members through the recognition programs. You can award them or give them a shout out or celebrate their achievements, both online and offline. All right. The next part is, which all ties it all together, which is empathy. So can you show a raise of hands if you feel like if it is irrelevant to software engineers? Good, all right. So the reason being, when you talk about coding is about delivering message to people and machines, and that means communication, so that leads to communication. And wherever the communication is involved, empathy plays a huge role. So for example, commit messages, PRs, tests, error messages, documentation, etc. And there are a bunch of ways by which it helps, in software development, because it enables developers to create products that are more user-friendly, meet the need of your audience, business side of things for your customers. And when you have empathy for your users, you can anticipate potential issues and design solutions to address those, and community members and all sorts of things. In addition, it can also improve team collaboration and communication in software development. Cool. So what is the importance? Yeah, build better products, increase team collaboration, and improve the user experience as well, like I mentioned. But the thing I want to talk about is, as developers, what might prevent someone to work with empathy? So there are a few biases that developers face. I have faced this. You may have, but you can only answer that. So the first one is confirmation bias. Now this is interesting. It basically is the tendency to seek out information that confirms pre-existing beliefs or assumptions while ignoring information that contradicts them. So for example, a developer who suffers with confirmational bias may only seek out user feedback that confirms that their assumptions about the product, rather than seeking out feedback that challenges their assumptions. So that's confirmation bias. Curse of knowledge. This is the tendency to assume that others know what we know, and developers who suffer from this curse of knowledge may assume that the users have the same level of knowledge and expertise as they do, which is not cool, which can lead to products that are difficult for users to understand and use. The next one is hindsight bias, which is a tendency to believe that events were more predictable after they occurred. So folks who suffer from this may believe that the user feedback was this feedback is obvious in retrospect, and even if they did not consider it during the development process. Availability bias is the tendency to rely on readily available information when making decisions, rather than seeking out more of a comprehensive information. So for example, folks may rely on feedback from a small group of users and ignore the feedback that is harder to obtain. So 4 kinds of biases. How to overcome these biases? So you should strive to gather a broad range of user feedback and community feedback, and challenge their assumptions about your events or product or your community or whatever. This can involve seeking out feedback from users with different perspectives, testing the product with diverse user groups, and just having an open mind. I was speaking with Jono Bacon, very popular guy, at the Open Source Summit, and I asked him, how do you get people to fill surveys? So if he said that if people are not filling your surveys, it's the high chance that your surveys suck. So making it easy for people to fill surveys is a nice tip that he gave me. Apart from that, that was a good tip. So when we talk about community members, empathy plays a good role here as well for building strong and collaborative teams in like several ways. The first one is trust. So empathy helps to build trust among team members. When team members demonstrate empathy, they show that they care about each other's feelings and perspectives, which can lead to increased trust and respect. Second one is communication. It can improve the communication amongst team members, and when team members understand and respect each other's perspectives, they are more likely to actively listen and communicate effectively. It can lead to more productive discussions and fewer misunderstandings. Conflict resolutions. I've organized a bunch of events, so I have faced scenarios in which some people have like a conflict. So empathy can help resolve conflicts, like among the attendees or team members. And when folks are empathetic, they are able to better understand each other's perspectives and find a mutual agreeable solution to the problems. Creativity. Empathy can also promote creativity within the team. When the team members understand the needs and desire of their target audience, they can develop more innovative solutions for those needs. Morale, as I mentioned, empathy also can improve morale by creating a more positive and supportive work environment. And when you talk about strategies, so active listening. So actively listening basically involves fully concentrating on what the other person is trying to say. I was watching an interview of Satya Nadella from Microsoft, and he was asked a question, how do you run a good meeting? So he said, listen more, talk less, be decisive when the time comes. And also putting oneself in other shoes. I think that's what a non-definitive, not a formal definition of empathy, but it's very relevant. Practicing curiosity, so asking questions about others' experiences, thoughts, and feelings, that can also help develop empathy. And perspective taking is another one, because it involves imagining oneself in other people's position, thinking about their thoughts and their feelings and their motivations. Providing support, that's another one. So offering support and encouragement to your community members can help build empathy and trust within the team. The next one is a little bit for people who work on code a lot. So if you show of raise of hands, if you see a code sample on a repository or whatever, and oh, who wrote this? This is garbage. Anyone? Right? So what do you do in that scenario? It's not about tech. It's not just in tech. I mean, this is what I do. Things that I have no control over, I would not worry. Right? What's the point? So let's say I have an interview tomorrow, and not me. Let me take someone else. I'm not going to name anyone. Let's say John Wick and Spider-Man. Right? John Wick and Spider-Man are interviewing for the same role. And John Wick is 100%, and let's imagine they both have same intelligence and same skills and the same education, all sorts of things. And John Wick is because he's a man of sheer will, commitment, focus, whatever, if you've seen the movie. So he spends 100% of his time preparing for the interview. And Spider-Man, what Spider-Man is doing is he's spending 50% of his time preparing for the interview, and 50% of the time worrying about, am I going to get selected, or what's going to happen and stuff like that. So who's likely to succeed? John Wick, because they both have equal mental capabilities, but John Wick is focusing more on the hard work or whatever. So when you find bad code, an analogy I like to use it, swap blame for honor. The person who wrote that bad code, let's assume for the sake of the argument, they have left the company, right? They've gone. So what do you do now? Do you track them down? It's going to reply. They're not going to reply to you. I've tried it. So what can you do is you can think of it as a So let's see. The code is not good. It's not nice. Like an archaeological dig. So when archaeologists find a skeleton or whatever, it's not intact. It's missing some pieces. So they reverse engineer it, and then they are able to figure out, the voice of the dinosaur or whatever. So many things, how it looked and whatever. So think of the bad code as an archaeological dig that you're going through. And the next point is make it better. So leave the code better than you found it, so that the future people don't have to, go through the same thing that you went through. So this is again empathy for future engineers. That's a good example for that. So yeah, write readable code by limiting abstractions, avoiding complex logic, and using clear naming conventions, stuff like that. I think I mostly covered most of the things. There's one thing around leaders. So empathetic leaders, they understand imposter syndrome. They know what it was like when they first started out. And imposter syndrome is not a bad thing, again, because no one invites imposter syndrome. It just happens. And show of raise of hands, anyone who suffers from imposter syndrome. There you go. So it's also not just for beginners. I think senior people, Tom Hanks suffers from imposter syndrome. So if Tom Hanks is suffering from imposter syndrome, then that makes it more clear. So yeah, seniors and everyone. So what do we do about it? No one invites imposter syndrome. So just see what you can do with it, how you can work with it. Maybe you can take it as an opportunity to learn more things, maybe add a new skill to your resume, talk to your team members, your managers, which brings me to this point, empathic leaders, they understand imposter syndrome. All right, I'm going to close my clean keynote with a question. We spoke about empathy, we spoke about, some examples, how to scale communities. I gave some questions for you to ask yourself, and some action items and stuff. But my question is, can empathy be taught? Raise of hands if you think it can be taught. Yeah, because it is oftentimes described as the ability to understand and share feelings and perspectives of others. However, it is also much more than just a feeling. It is a skill, and just like any other skill, it can be learned and developed. So yeah, it's not a fixed trait as well that people are born with. While some individuals may have a natural aptitude for empathy, it is a skill that can be developed and strengthened, through intentional effort. And research has also shown that it can be improved through training, education, and practice. I'll just give you something to think about. Maybe you can reflect on a time where lack of empathy have affected a project or a relationship, in your work, and consider the ways to practice empathy moving forward. Lastly, since we're talking about communities, future-proofing your communities, if you talk about cloud-native communities, it's crucial to adapt to emerging trends because new things keep coming out. Embrace, emerging trends and technologies. This new thing around AI is coming right now, power of AI, machine learning, automation. So maybe you can explore that. I have not much, but anyway. Continuously innovating and experimenting. Foster, standardization, because as technologies evolve, standardization becomes critical because you can focus on defining common standards, best practices, and open interfaces to ensure seamless integration. And since we're talking about clouds, so avoiding vendor lock-in, address security, privacy concerns, enhancing collaboration and participations, foster a diverse and inclusive community, continuous learning and skill development, address the ethical and governance considerations. And that's basically the summary of my talk. And if you want to connect with me, that's my Twitter, that's my email. Thank you.